Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, friends. I'm MK Venu, founding editor of The Wire, and I'm here today to discuss with you a very a subject that people are quite engaged with these days, which is what does it mean for India to become the third largest economy in a few years. Some time ago, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also made a statement saying that India, in another 4 years, 3 to 4 years, will become the third largest economy in the world after US and China. At the moment, India is the fifth largest economy. The third largest ranked position is with Japan, roughly close to $5 trillion, $4.9 trillion. Then it's Germany, roughly 4.2 trillion dollars, and India roughly at $3.7 trillion. So it's inevitable that India will become the third largest economy in the next 3-4 years, simply because Japan and Germany will probably show an average nominal GDP growth of not more than 3%, and India will show a nominal GDP growth of 10%. So you can see the gap. So if India is growing at 10% nominal GDP growth, and Japan and Germany are growing at maybe 3 to 4%, even less. In due course, in 3-4 years, India is poised to become the third largest economy. But what does this mean for us? Does it sort of dramatically or in any meaningful way change the way we live? Will it bring prosperity which is uniform across the board? Will it remove all inequalities in society? And more importantly, how will it impact the way we manage our environment in the midst of the climate change debate? How will this growth impact us? So, to discuss these and many other questions, I'm here to answer anything that you might want to understand and know from me. So please ask me anything around this question of what does it mean for India to be the third largest economy in due course in the next 3-4 years, and is it a big deal at all? Please shoot. Yeah. So there's one question I've got. What significance does it have to be the third largest when there is such inequality in terms of wealth in our country? Now, inequality is a very serious problem which India faces, and other societies too face inequality, but India faces inequality of a higher magnitude. It's much sharper than other countries, which has been proven by research which shows that India has the largest number of billionaires, probably after Russia, and its middle class is still very small. So there are more billionaires, and there are much larger number of poor, say people earning less than let's say $10 a day, or so that number is very, very high. As per the last socio-economic and caste survey in 2011, we found that at least 90% of India's population or households, 90%, they earn less than roughly 15,000 rupees a month, which is quite low as an income threshold, and that is a problem which we have faced for the last 10 years, which is also a problem which has resulted in economic demand not picking up. So there's been a consumption kind of a very low consumption trap India has got caught in the last 10 years. And I would also say that the real metric for health of any society should be derived not in terms of pure GDP number, because India's per capita income is among the bottom 25% countries. We rank among the bottom probably 25-30% in terms of per capita income. India's per capita income is pretty low at $2,400. So which is very low, which would be regarded, definitely would be regarded as low income, low middle income. So going forward, I think the best way to judge a society's well-being is to go by United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So UN, I would request all of you to please go to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, go to Google, go to the UN website, just punch Sustainable Development Goals and what they mean. So there are 7 metrics on which the United Nations, the 193 countries have agreed to. So that's the way I think I would please urge you all to study the Sustainable Development Goals, because increasingly there is a consensus that those are the metrics that we must follow, and in that ranking, and this process began, as you all know, from 2016, 1st Jan 2016, and this process, the Sustainable Development Goals are to be achieved by 2030, and all the world governments sat together in 2015 and decided on these 17 metrics to be followed from 2016 onwards until 2030, and every year we get the Sustainable Development Goals report card, and in my view, that's the best way to judge whether how well we are scoring on the development metric parameter. So there's one question that I've got here. How do you think manufacturing and jobs in India will be impacted with the rapid increase of automation and AI, especially with surplus goods now available with China and that potentially being dumped into India at the lowest cost? Now this is an interesting question, because China is also at the forefront of automation. In fact, China today manufactures the largest number of sophisticated robots. China is actually a world leader in manufacture of robots, and China also has at the moment probably among the highest youth unemployment ratio. India too faces a very high youth unemployment ratio, upward of 20%. So this is a challenge. How do we create a kind of balance between use of technology to spread productivity, at the same time not let it impact jobs in any significant way? Now, this is an age-old debate, right? So when the computers came, there was this big fear that computers would displace human employment. So that that debate continues. In fact, it is getting intensified in the context of AI. So new ways of providing employment to people will have to be devised, and I personally feel that that it can be managed if policy is genuinely uh, uh, tweaked in a way that that it is compassionate towards humans and it is human centric. If the policy is human centric, I think we can deal with this problem. If it is purely productivity centric, then you may have the situation where the new economy is raising productivity, and the old economy, manufacturing, is not generating jobs, which is the situation at the moment. I think this needs serious attention, and a serious policy attention is needed here. Yeah. Then there's this question I've got on how is it possible to grow at 10% and insulate large chunk of people from the benefits of such growth? Is there a prudent way to remove insulation? Possible to grow at 10% and insulate a large chunk of people from benefits of growth? Well, if you grow at 10%, then the benefits must percolate to a large chunk of people. So there is so I guess higher growth should bring in more employment, especially in manufacturing. In India, this one of our biggest, one of the gaping holes in our policy in the last 2 decades has been manufacturing employment, and manufacturing has in India has remained at about 15-16% of GDP, and one of the stated objectives of this government when Mr. Modi came to power was to raise it to 23-24%, and but 10 years on, manufacturing is still stuck at 16% of GDP, and we are nowhere near achieving manufacturing at 24% as was envisaged. So we need to sort of generate more manufacturing employment. That's the only way. See, you can have growth these days. A K-shaped growth has become a big debating point. What does K-shape mean? K-shape means that, as you see in K, there's one stick which goes up, and that's a smaller stick, and that represents maybe 20-30% of the population, which is doing very well, and they are the ones who are driving GDP. But the stick which is going down, which is the longest stick of K, which represents about 70% of the population, where incomes are stagnating. So we are in a classic K-shaped growth. This is a consensus. This is admitted even by some of the researchers, private sector equity research heads in India, and even multilateral institutions admit that India is at the moment looking at a K-shaped growth. So this needs to be corrected, and I think policy attention will have to be turned to how to sort of correct this K-shaped distorted growth process that we are seeing at the moment. Yeah. There's another question that I got from Rajesh Misra. When the data of Indian economy is provided by the government is doubtful, how can we assess real problems of our economy? Yes, Rajesh, I completely agree with you. In fact, some of the government's own economists have complained that they don't find good data coming out of the government, or whatever data used to come out, NSSO data or the census. This government has not conducted the decadal census, which was to be done in 2021, and by not doing that, a whole lot of policy problems have got created. I can give you one example which I discussed last week in my video. The biggest healthcare scheme of the Modi government, Ayushman Bharat, covering 500 million people. the founding CEO of Ayushman Bharat wrote an article in Times of India about 2 months ago, saying that they are finding it very difficult to select the real beneficiaries of the healthcare scheme, the poor, the bottom 40% poor people, because there's no census, there's no updated census. They all have to rely on the 2011 census, which according to him was not giving the right, which was flawed, which it's not updated. So similarly, there's a lot of other policy welfare delivery is linked to data coming out of census, and there is absolutely all those in all those areas we are kind of really shooting in the dark at the moment. There's lack of data, so I think data is a big problem in our country, and recently a World Bank economist, Ashoka Modi, had commented that even the GDP figures that came out, 7.8%, he said it was not 7.8 because the government typically calculates data from the income side, whereas when you look at the expenditure side, right, in any balance sheet, income should be equal to expenditure minus savings, right? So if you look at expenditure side, it doesn't match. So expenditure is much lower, which probably indicates that the income is somewhat overestimated. So according to him, what Ashoka Modi, a very well-known World Bank economist, he said that the Americans and the Germans and many Western countries, they calculate both income and expenditure, and then they data from both ends, and then they take an average of both. This is done by the American the Economic Bureau research, well-known American research bureau also does this, Economic Research Bureau. So, but India doesn't do that. India purely looks at income, and a lot of this income is taken as proxy. For instance, services income. We take a proxy. We take organized services companies like in the financial sector or hotels, tourism, restaurants, whose data is available, who would have paid GST, etc. And then we extrapolate that, and we use that extrapolation to measure the 80%, 85% of the unorganized sector that provides services, small services who don't pay GST, who are well below the GST threshold, and we calculate their growth. Their growth is calculated on the lines of the organized sector, which may be flawed because many economists have suggested post-COVID, especially India's former chief statistician Pranab Sen, I spoke to him last week, and he was saying that when you are seeing a K-shaped growth, then you cannot extrapolate the organized sector and use it for the unorganized, because the unorganized sector is actually losing income and the organized sector is actually gaining in income. So you can't use that as a proxy and calculate the unorganized sector. So how much time will it take for India to hit 5 trillion GDP? Is another question from Taqiyuddin, MD Taqiyuddin. So $5 trillion was the goal, was to have been achieved in 2022, but it didn't happen, largely because we were hit by demonetization. After that, our growth kind of really collapsed. So in 1920, before the demonetization year, India saw a growth rate of 3.5%. And since then, if you see 1920, 2021, 21, 22, 2023, 22, 23, 4 years, we've had average 3.5% GDP growth. So that is way below par. That's growing at half the potential rate that India should grow at. So 5 trillion probably will be at the end of 2024. We'll barely hit 4 trillion, and maybe it'll take another 2-3 years to hit $5 trillion. Whereas Prime Minister Modi had promised 5 trillion much earlier. So this is a promise which will have to wait to be realized. Yeah. There's another question which is it a result of focused efforts and specific economic policies that will make it happen, or was it going to happen anyway? So there is so as I said, India becoming the third largest economy, or India achieving $5 trillion will happen on an as is where is basis. Really, you don't have to make any great effort. Even if India grows at say 6% over the next 4 or 5 years, you will achieve both 5.5%, 6%. And then you ask, is 6% enough to deal with the problems of unemployment, etc.? Is it India's potential growth rate? I don't think so. India can grow at 7.5%, 8%. So, whether India will grow at 7.5%, 8% is an open question, which we'll see in the years to come. But then India will, even at 6.5%, India will be could be among the fastest growing economies purely on the GDP metric. But then on the Sustainable Development Goal metric, development goals, UN SDG metrics, if you please go to that, study that every year they come up with it. India is ranked at 112 at the moment, and out of 193 countries, we are 112, and there are many countries, even in South Asia, countries like Bhutan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Sri Lanka are ahead of us in the Sustainable Development Goals metric, which of course includes, as I said, a host of things. Zero poverty, zero hunger, healthcare, optimal healthcare, education, climate action, water and sanitation, provision of water and sanitation, and of course, and industry infrastructure. So there are 17 metrics. So I would suggest, please, in future, focus on, please read the UN SDGs, which all the 193 countries around the world have agreed to, and they are following it very strictly. Even Niti Aayog monitors SDGs, UN SDGs in India, and they have also concluded that the southern states are much better in delivering the Sustainable Development Goals. Kerala, etc., are at the top. The southern states. It's the northern states really which at the moment are weighing us down. So in many respects, the northern states have very poor labor participant ratio among women. They have poor water sanitation provision. They have poor healthcare services provision. They have poor education services provision. So when you study India, I always suggest to people that study India in a disaggregated way. You'll find interesting comparisons. How the southern states are per capita income is much higher. The demographics of the southern state also reflect much more the demographics of the developed countries. This is also a part of World Bank report. And I must tell you, I must give you this interesting bit of statistics brought out by a private research firm in Mumbai, equity research firm called Marcellus. They said that the southern states, the average per capita income of southern states was 35% more than the average per capita income of rest of India 5 years ago. Today, it is more than 50% more than the per capita income of rest of India. So today, per capita income of southern states is 50% more than the per capita income of the rest of India. So the gap is growing. South versus North gap is growing. Private investors feel much better investing in the South. Whether you look at the car companies, foreign car companies, even iPhones, the big investment that this government touts as a big, mobile Apple investment in India is also in the South. So we need to get a lot more activity going in North India. So recently, Economist carried a story saying the number of factories per lakh people in North India is very low. In UP, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Bihar, very low, and they are quite high in south of India. So we are really looking at two contrasting pictures when you look at both GDP growth, general well-being, sustainable development goals. Please, I request you to study North and South in a slightly disaggregated way. Now, there's a question. Don't you think that from Ashish Chawla, don't you think that achieving growth through service sector is easier and more viable than manufacturing? Is Indian government taking steps in the service sector? So to answer your question, Ashish, the service sector is doing well on its own. So how did this service sector boom begin? The service sector boom began with India's IT services sector in the 90s, really sort of setting up, becoming the service provider for the rest of the world. Managing all the big global companies and their back-end services in India. All the top 400-500 multinational Fortune 500 companies have their research outfits in India. Now, financial services also have cropped up. Indian banks have done very well. In fact, Indian banks are the only single story, one big story, Indian banks, is that they have done better than the foreign banks in India. So the non-banking financial services companies have done very well. They have really, microfinance companies have done very well. They've spread their influence and spread their tentacles across India. So services, hotels, restaurants done very well. Small budget hotels, OYOs, etc. The services are doing very well in India. That really did not require much government support. It's basically technology. The government just had to just stay away, and they did well. Where support is required was always in manufacturing, and which now belatedly after several decades, this government has started this subsidy scheme, what is called production-linked incentive scheme, in a few sectors, but that's not enough. That's not substantial. The incentives that are giving to various industries, they constitute about less than 4% of GDP. So, the industry's size are as such that they. I think we cannot generate meaningful jobs with services alone. Some people, of course, suggest that India can bypass the manufacturing leg and just move on to services. My sense is no other country in the world has done this. Nobody is able to bypass the manufacturing stage, which is the main intensive employment provider. So we have to really look at why India's manufacturing has stagnated so badly for decades at whatever 15-16% of GDP. Services are at 55-60%, close to 60% GDP. Also, in services, mind you, as I said earlier, large number of unorganized entities are in services. All these small shopkeepers, small vendors that you anecdotally see around India. They all are single family service providing units. So plumbers, carpenters, blue collar workers, they all provide services as single entities. And so they, in fact, in our whole employment profile, 52% of the people that India employs today are actually self-employed. Now, this is a very peculiar data for India. I have not seen such data for any other country anywhere in the world. If you have, then please point this to me. 52% of India's employed are self-employed, and of this 52%, 1/3 are home employed in their home ventures without salary. So you can imagine a third of the 52% are working without a salary. This is a very peculiar employment profile of India. So that's why I say that manufacturing is important. We need to retrain all these people who are sitting at home and helping home enterprise without any salary. I don't think we can call this employment. Even the ILO does not is a bit conflicted about describing this as employment. People work at home enterprise without getting paid. So, Mansingh Deshmukh says that he agrees that technology has impact on job creation, but I believe way of capital use in India has much dangerous impact on jobs and broader inclusive growth. Your views and solution to this? Mansingh, the only solution to uh, prevent capital and technology intensity uh, uh, from from taking away of capital and technology intensity. They are important to generate growth, to generate productivity. So when you're competing in the world, you cannot say no to capital and technology intensity because everybody else is adopting it. So the only way you can then provide some sort of safety net and job safety to those who are not involved in the technology intensive sector is by coming up with alternative strategy of labor intensive growth, production, labor intensive production at the local level, where local is also produced and where things are locally produced and locally consumed. And the government can play a big role in this. Government is one of the biggest buyers. Government can actually buy locally produced labor intensive items from different parts of the country, which to some extent the government claims it is doing. For instance, buying a lot of stuff from Northeast, furniture made of bamboo or things made from bamboo, stationery items, etc., etc. But we have to devise very specific strategies of encouraging labor-intensive production and as well as consumption. If you can have production-linked investment scheme for large industry in your policy, if you can give a 6% subsidy to Apple to produce mobile phones, why can't you give 10% subsidy to some millions of small labor-intensive producers? They could be producing anything. They could be manufacturing achars, papads, small food products. India is culturally very rich and diverse in terms of production of food processing. Local food processing has always been cited as one of the most unexplored areas of production and employment. I think policy needs to focus on this. Yeah. So there's a question on how does too much concentration of business wealth or crony capitalism hurt common Indian? Why should it matter to me? Well, crony capitalism, concentration of business wealth is a problem because it is settled economics. In economics literature, it's a settled fact that wherever there is concentration of wealth, the wider markets do not work properly, and the monopolists they get. They seek excessive rent from the system, and they kill other smaller players. So this is. We can see it in front of our eyes these days. In airlines, we've noticed that many airlines are dead now, and there are just 2 left. So you'll suddenly see airline fares going up. Similarly, in telecom industry, there were some 8-10 service providers, but today there is concentration. So we have just 2 telecom service providers. You'll see very soon. You'll see it is already the mobile services costs have gone up. 60-70%. It'll keep going up. So it'll happen it's happening in front of our eyes. So So this is it. It is not the consumers don't benefit. In fact, consumers get exploited in a situation of wealth concentration. It's really economics 101. So there's a question on how can we double farmers' income, or what could be the possible measures to alleviate poverty. So I would request you people to please read Mahinder Singh Tekait's interview in The Wire on he's spoken about how farmers have lagged compared to he's gone back some 20 years, and he's compared the farmer's income to salary of a government teacher, school teacher, and how the school teacher salary has gone up some 15-20 times, and the farmer's income has stagnated. And he's talked about how for farmers input costs have gone up, but the prices, end products have not, the price realizations have not been good. So farmers are getting impoverished, which is a fact. And farmers are also dispersed. They don't have the ability to organize themselves and and demand collective bargaining. Farmers are not good at, as we've seen. So Mr. Tikait suggests that there are other ways in which government can help farmers. Their families can be given other forms of help, welfare, in terms of education, in terms of taking care of other expenses in the family. So doubling of farmers' income, it has proved to be I would say, it's far from being achieved, and it has just remained a jumla, if you will. So so I don't know where we are headed in this. Yeah. So what do you think about Indian education future in the upcoming years? So the education system, again, I would say, well, if you look at primary education, there is enough research to show that if you follow Pratham's study of Indian primary education system, the results are very dismal. People in higher classes can't read mathematics or English of much lower class, and at the level of higher education, we are still struggling to create enough good engineers, doctors. All kinds of chaotic policy measures are coming, but we still have to see the outcome. That's why I keep telling you, please go back to Sustainable Development Goals of UN and where India is figuring year after year. Recently, day before, the National Medical Commission has come up with a strange policy where it is putting a ceiling on hospitals in the south, on the ground that the south has enough hospitals and north. Now, how can you put a ceiling on the number of hospitals in the south? Just because south is doing well, is south being penalized for doing better on healthcare? So this has been protested by many people. So such chaotic policies definitely will not work. We will have to be far more rational in the way we design education policy at the higher level. So there's one question by Pavel Parashar. Do you think Manrega type of employment guarantee should be extended even to urban workers, especially when the labor laws have been diluted by the government and unorganized sector is facing the worst crisis? Well, there has been a big debate on whether Manrega should be extended to the urban sector, and this debate gained a lot of traction after COVID. And I personally agree that Manrega. I would recall to you what Prime Minister Modi said when he took over in 2014, when he said Manrega rural employment guarantee was a monument of Congress's failure in generating growth and real jobs. And after saying that, Mr. Modi has doubled the Manrega allocations year after year. At least if you take the average of UPA and average of NDA Manrega allocations. By the way, Manrega is is a legislated demand-based allocation. It is no great credit to any government that it has allocated more. It is a demand from the unemployed which comes from below that leads to much higher Manrega allocation. And in Modi's regime, the allocations have been average, have gone up 50 lakhs, double that of the average that we saw in UPA, which clearly shows that there is acute unemployment problem in India. So please look at the Manrega numbers during the Modi regime and compare it with what UPA regime had. So my sense is that there's a direct correlation between very high Manrega allocations and lower growth and employment, especially in the unorganized sector. And I think that an urban Manrega is justified. It has been justified through other schemes also, like a universal basic, universal income scheme. So that also in a way kind of subsumes the urban and rural Manrega both. Actually, at some point there could be a possibility that a universal basic scheme is brought where these things are both urban and rural are collapsed. It's a possibility. Anyway, then there's a question from Syed Makbul Saab. Why there is a disconnect between share market and the real economy? Why market is literally ignoring the new revelations on Irani? Syed sir, I'll just say that don't look at share market as any indicator of what's happening in the economy, because share market works on its own logic. So share market is driven by, first of all, barely less than 5% of the population has demat accounts, right? So 95% of our society invests in real estate and gold as means of savings. Share market is very small, and share market is also driven a lot by the upper middle class in India, and of course foreign institutional investors. So you can understand this dichotomy. It's actually a schizophrenic situation where the top 20% who have decent incomes, they invest in the market, and the bottom, whatever, 80% are totally out of the market. So a big investor told me that he only looks at when he invests in the stock market, he only looks at what the top 20% consume. He doesn't much go really below to the bottom 50-60%. They do not matter to the stock market actually. So that is the reality that we face in our country. It's a reflection of our deep inequalities also, income inequalities also. So is that so there's another question. Sorry, I'm running out of time. I may conclude in a minute or two. I'll take this one question from Mr. Kaushik. I'm a CA student. I'm very interested in economics. I want to read more and more about real economics. Please suggest some good authors and books. So Piyush, now what should I suggest to you in terms of real economics? I think the best way to, Piyush, to understand real economics is to actually do what I have been doing for many decades. Just talk to economic players on the ground. Talk to farmers, talk to shopkeepers, talk to your vegetable vendor, talk to your Uber driver. Just figure out their economics. I think that's the only way to understand. And I would also suggest to you that there is very little focus on microeconomics. Please try to understand how people live and go for microeconomics. We see macroeconomic theory, and they provide a very broad framework. But if you want to really assess the real situation of the people, I think you should just do research on the ground. So that would be my advice to you. And and you will find enough books around that. So with this, I would thanks a lot. I would like to wind up with this in this session, and I would also, to Kaushik, please read Ashoka Modi's book. Ashoka Modi, a former World Bank person who has actually given a very, very candid account of what India looks like. So please get hold of that book, Ashoka Modi's book. And there's another book called India is Broke. That's Ashoka Modi's book, actually. And please look at data, private data, that CMI provides, because government data these days is very fuzzy. I would recommend that you go to CMI and try to see the CMI gives a full, like almost monthly account of employment, unemployment, new investment, so you would benefit from that also. So with this, I wind up this session, and we'll look forward to doing more such sessions with you. And please do go to our Wire WhatsApp channel, and also keep in touch with us. Subscribe to our Wire YouTube. We will keep providing you more and more information that helps you think and helps you decide where the truth lies. Thank you.